Hey kids, welcome to Stylus Rumble Chat Time thing. Today I'm going to be interviewing the lovely and talented Simon Paquette again. He's from Reptoid Games, which you can see here in the background. Please go check out their Kickstarter. It's 43% funded. It's well underway, and we're all hoping it does super good because it's going to be so cute. Look at the little dinosaurs. Oh, I love it. So today we're going to talk all about storyboarding, and I mine him for so much information. I think it's absolute gold. I'm going to take a ton of notes, and I feel like I need to go do some homework because he's definitely set up some challenges for anybody who's interested in boards. So I'm just going to pop over to that, and you can listen to all his wisdom. Check out all his links down below, of course. It'll have links to him on the Twitter and his website here, his Kickstarter. I'll have all that down there. So you have to check it out, and at the very least go bug him on Twitter because he is amazing. So let's just hop in because I can add a pre-roll. Everybody knows who you are now. You're like a regular guest on here.
The boring parts are done.
Yes, we can get over. Anybody wants to know more about you can check the other video.
It's all cartoons all the time.
Now I can just mine you for information on storyboarding because I'm a terrible storyboarder.
I don't believe you.
I heard a thump. So scared.
It's the getaway.
Having a toddler is like having a poltergeist. God. Okay. No, but the only storyboarding classes I took, my instructor was not very informative. And whenever I asked him, I showed my storyboards to him. He's like, "Oh, they're great. Go on, you're doing great." So I felt like I was doing great, and then I like got a low pass, or like I got like just skimmed through the class, and I was like, "I asked you so many times how to fix this. Why didn't you tell me?"
Wait, did you actually have a storyboard class?
Yeah.
See, I never had a storyboard class. I had 2 storyboard assignments, like, at all. Mm-hmm. And they didn't really tell us anything. I mean, I had fun doing them in school. I guess I learned one thing that has still stuck with me from that, and that's that the most important part of storyboards is clarity. Mm-hmm. And that is something that like has remained true the whole time I've done any boards, and it's kind of a vague piece of advice, but it's good to think about because there's a lot of stuff you can draw, especially on a computer. And so when it comes down to clarity, that really sort of answers a lot of questions about like, should I draw more panels for this? You know, if it's serving the clarity, then it could be a good idea.
Because I find that what board artists have that I don't have is this, the like little shot. Because whenever I picture a scene, I picture everything in the scene, like the whole entire place, and I never really have that. And then I'm so anal retentive because I'm a rigger, like because I've got that logic mind. I'm like, we should just do 3/4 medium shots all the time. That's all.
Yeah, and and that makes a lot of sense, and that was a lot of where my head was at when I started too. Because I mean, I started as an animator, and I wasn't thinking about framing at all. I mean, I guess when I got into like animation directing and supervising, I had to think about framing because that was like a lot of what the director's revisions would be. Is like that thing's not on camera, this other thing's not in camera. That thing was in camera, but it moved out of camera. Mm-hmm. Look at like the TV safe, and so I like just had to do a lot of like preempting that. So I sort of got thinking a bit more about the camera, but it's really normal because like as an animator of any kind, you're very object oriented. Like you're thinking about the thing that has to move around. And so you're like, this thing goes over here, and like you just forget all of it. It's like one thing I've noticed is that whenever I'm sitting at people's desks to look at their work, I'm like, turn the camera mask on. And they're like, what? And like you just forget because like you just mentally just block off all the stuff that's not important. But like I can't look at your shots if you don't turn the camera mask on because I don't know what's in frame or not because I've not been staring at it. So like that's a really good example that happens to like every single person that is animating and so it's I think you need to be that focused on the individual parts of your scene to be a good animator. So it's like getting into boards, that's just like the most important thing to refocus on is like you said, the shot. So already you've got the priorities right, so harden yourself.
Yes. I do better than I thought. So where do you even start? You get a script, it's like a bazillion possibilities. How do you even it's too much to even like where do you start with that?
Yeah, and I mean this is kind of like someone gives you a piece of paper and says do a cool drawing. Where do you start?
I'm so bad at that.
Yeah, newsflash. So you're not alone. Like that is literally the job is like how do you turn it into boards? So the good news is as a board artist, usually you're not also the director. So the first step is looking at, taking that script and talking to the director about it to figure out what is like in their head about it. Because I mean, as a director, when I read through a script, I'm like seeing it like a little movie in my head. It may not actually be shots, and it might not even be possible what I'm thinking of, but I'm getting like just an idea of it. And I think just about anybody who reads a script is going to have some kind of like visuals going on in their head. So I guess the first step of reading a script is just paying really close attention to, you know, what that first image that pops in your head is, or what the feeling is, or like an image or a shot, and then trying to capture that. So I guess getting right into my process, the first thing that I like to do when I look at a script is I get a paper copy of it. I print it out. And for me, this is super important. And even if I'm going to be working 100% digital, is that as I'm reading through the script, like my first read through of the script, I start writing on the script. Like I'll put like a little like sketch, like a terrible drawing that no one could understand in the corner. Just like if I read a shot of like some guy jumps over a fence and like I have like an image in my head of that, I'll just do a shot of like just a drawing of like what's one way that this could work. It doesn't have to cut to anything, right? Or I will like circle a line that seems important or that seems weird or that like doesn't make any sense. Just that like first pass through, like what is like your just gut instinct of like right away things that jump out to you. This seems super cool, or like this should be like a big angry face on it. Like, I don't know, just getting practice of just capturing those first impressions going through. And so I'll mark up the whole script with just a bunch of like little crappy drawings all over it, because the next time I go through the script, if I'm like second guessing myself or doubting them, I can just look at those drawings and it reminds me. Do you ever get like, okay, so anyone who's an artist probably remembers drawing in like classes in school, right? Like you're drawing in margins of your books or whatever. And like there's this weird effect of like when you look at those drawings, you remember the thing that someone was like telling you about. Do you ever get that?
Yeah, it's like part of your notes is the doodles.
Yeah, and now that you've been writing a picture, drawing a picture or something, you can remember stuff. I feel like that's what happens with the storyboarding, right? Like, so I'm reading the script, and because I did a little doodle, I remember a little bit better that one moment. And then if I forgot it for whatever reason, or say I spent like 3 weeks doing storyboards like on one part of it, I need to remember, okay, I got to the last page. I haven't read this since I first read the script. What the heck did I think this shot was? And now I've got all this continuity and crazy stuff I'm thinking about. I forgot like this was my favorite part of the script. What did I actually want to do here? So if I have some little scribbles, that's really helpful. So yeah, step one, draw like crappy drawings all over your script, because it's really helpful.
Love it. So do you work like an act at a time or all over the place? Like page one and then go to the end?
Well, first thing I would say to that is it depends how long the script is. Mm-hmm. Because if you've got like 22 minutes of like a TV show to board, like you kind of want to chunk that up a little bit, just for sanity reasons. But and so your continuity doesn't go crazy. Right. I've tried a bunch of different like workflows. Some people I know like to do like a full pass of like little thumbnails and then do like roughs over the whole thing and then clean it all up and everything, which usually results in really beautiful boards. But it's like it's really hard. I find it's really hard to learn and to like fix your mistakes as you go. You're kind of just lock yourself in to making a really beautiful looking board that has a really nice drawing. So if you trust your gut and you're like, I 100% know what these shots are going to be, then that is a cool way to make a really pretty board. Or maybe if you're doing like a portfolio piece or something. And anyway, I found that it was just so slow because I felt like I was doing the board 3 times. I feel like as soon as I get into the problem solving of like, how does this? I'm like, oh, I've got it. I need to like lock that in and like actually just do it. And like I get really exhausted trying to go back into that like a week later, and like I just feel like I'm redoing the work. So after trying a bunch of variations of doing roughs and then clean, I found that I worked a lot on trying to get a really gestural style of drawing, like that my first lines I put down can be like kind of okay, or like I can do a couple of lines, clean up a little bit, and like it reads good enough that I can mostly like straight ahead like a little sequence. Like while I'm working on it, I'll just like loop over it a couple of times. But when I'm like done, I'm like, yeah, cool, this looks good, and I can flip through it. I want to be able to put that aside and know that if I had to like ship that board and give it to someone, that it like someone could cut it into it doesn't have to be like amazing, but it has to be good enough. For me personally, that's something that I've found has just been so exhausting to go back to, something that I feel like I've mentally done with. So yeah, I mean, it sounds a lot like I'm saying just work clean and don't make any mistakes. So, that's great if you can do that. But I've found that working straight ahead, like it's like animation, right? It's kind of like problem solving, right? It's like you need a thing to happen and there's a lot of different options. And then like once you get into the groove of like, oh, it'll do this and this and this, you kind of just need to get it in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like being able to finish that and move forward.
Right. Did you ever get into the habit of studying films or studying other animations and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I was really kind of resistant to it at first, and I feel like maybe this is just my school, but there was a lot of like beating into our heads that like plagiarism is bad. Don't copy anything. You just have to dream up all your ideas, which is absolutely insane. What you need to do as an artist of any kind is steal the shit out of everything, like literally everything.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't like to hear this all the time either, Tracy, but like literally copy the shit out of everything.
Oh, I love it.
If you're worried about stealing somebody's ideas, the answer is steal more ideas.
Yeah, I feel like if you steal 10 ideas for one drawing, it's unique.
Yeah,
you just have to steal more.
I did a little like freelance contract like years ago for a friend who wanted to do like a Leica reel for some anime thing. And I mean, I've watched lots of anime, and like way back, I like once upon a time drew anime stuff, but now I've got like a cartoony style. I'm like, I don't even know if I can do this. So I just did a lot. I needed to do like design characters too, because he just had nothing, right? So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just blatantly Google like anime witch girl, and I'm like, I guess I'll just draw this character. And I like almost blatantly tried to rip it off, but like changed like, oh well, her hat needs to be different because of like this character thing, and she needs to have like this kind of a belt because that's part of like the character design. And it was basically I was trying to plagiarize these drawings like from a storyboard. It's a storyboard, right? So it's not really a design. But by the time I was done drawing it, it didn't look anything like anything I referenced, because I'm like, okay, well, I'll use this costume and this pose. Boom, completely original character. And I'm like, I can't copy this if I even tried. So that's, of course, you can plagiarize stuff if you really try. But my point, if you're looking at reference, you're either going to be doing it intentionally or you're going to be doing it by accident. Right. So when you think you have an original idea, it's probably coming from some crazy thing you just don't even remember that you saw before. So I think it's a lot better to pay close attention to where your influences are coming from and like find clever ways of mixing them together. But like, please, please, please copy everything. So when that comes to storyboards, I think that if you like really have never tried to do this before and you don't even know where to start, and like you said, if you're like, how can you go in here? One of the best exercises you can do just to get a sense for the frame, and like that thumbnail thing I was saying to do for the script, is to like just pick a movie. It's better if it's one you know really, really well, so you're not going to get excited watching it. And just go like shot by shot and draw like as many panels as you can, super, super tiny, like really small, so you can barely even draw stick people, and just try to draw the frame and like, is the character on the left side or the right side? Is their head at the top of the frame or in the middle? Is there a character in the foreground? Is there a character back here? Like, is it like dark or is it light? Whatever you want to look at. If you're just looking at the frame, just look at the composition and like what are the obvious things in every shot, and just try to do like 50 of them, of these tiny little drawings, going like just pausing the movie at whatever point. And I think that is like, that never gets old. It's always super, super helpful. I mean, there's a ton of resources for like just understanding cinematography and the types of shots, like long shot, medium shot, close up. And like, I feel like that there's a lot of information like that out there. The reality with anything that you're trying to learn is you just got to practice a lot. So the good thing about storyboards is they almost never have to be good drawings, but they do, like I said before, they have to be clear. So learning things that you're missing, like framing and composition and stuff, like the best way to practice that is just dumb, tiny little drawings. And then later you can spend time doing like pretty stuff.
I love it. I had a question and now it's disappeared. Come back, question.
Was it about like copying from movies and stuff, or plagiarizing, or frame?
I don't know. Well, I do. When I took storyboarding class, that was one of the things that he had us do. Was just, well, I think we were watching old Hitchcock films, and he had a timer, like a little like tick, 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 tick. And every like 30 seconds or 1 minute, it would be like next shot, next shot, next shot.
Yeah, that's always cool.
Super intense time, and it was good. Composition is a weak point for me. I can't do this fast.
Yeah, and it's like with anything, you learn this with animation too, is just not getting precious about any individual drawing. Learning how to just like roll through them really fast is like I think once you've learned how to do that in one field, so if like you're already like got a bit of experience with animation, you kind of like got a bit of a groove for how to go fast on things. So it's a little bit easier. If this is your first time doing any kind of an art job, it's like it's going to be tough. But
Right.
yeah, just don't get precious. Draw lots. Draw
Right.
faster.
Yeah, I think I just remember what popped in my head was that when people are learning animation, they kind of forget that live action stuff is really valuable.
Yeah.
Like just watching stuff on cinematography from any point of view, whether it's live action or animation, is going to help you. I've been watching lots of like film, just screenwriting stuff, talking about how characters, like the important parts of characters and stuff and what to focus on. And it's given me a lot of ideas for animating characters and thinking about what that character is doing and stuff.
Yeah, you're talking about like writing and like character motivation and stuff.
Yeah, but even from an animation acting point of view, a lot of it kind of goes hand in hand. Thinking about like you have this like action star male character on one animation show, and then the next show you have to animate like a little girl making cupcakes. Like you have to you have to switch your focus there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's all sort of the same stuff because like with storyboarding, it's kind of just like it's like the macro of it. It's like bigger picture because you're doing the boards, but it's all the same motivation, right? I find it really helpful having a background as an animator because when I'm boarding, I'm thinking about all the same stuff about the character motivation and like how it's going to work, and I feel like I know how to set up like good information for animators to work with because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna give like a bit more expression here. Or I'm gonna give a more useful pose for the animator to work with.
Right, your posing is probably a lot more robust rather than just teacup.
I mean, honestly, like you got to do the teacup sometimes.
I love a teacup.
It's like you got a lot of poses to get in there, and to some degree, it's like it's a bit redundant to try and overpose your boards unless you can draw like exactly on model. It depends on your show. This is something that is really, really depending on the style that's happening. So some shows you can board like 100% on model. Like I did a board for Fairly Odd Parents, and like I'm drawing like exactly what the characters would look like. I mean, not exactly because it's not like on model drawings, but like I'm doing clean drawings, and like the animators are going to be able to do the poses like really, really close to what I did.
Yeah, the sidekick boards were ultra.
Yeah, it's the same stuff.
Like you could just take it exactly the shot, the pose per pose, and it looked great.
Yeah, because it's a clean, like really graphic style, and that's part of like the production style of that show where you're supposed to do it. So in that case, it's really important, and I spend a lot more time drawing the characters on the board I did for that than I would have on other shows. So it is really subjective, but
for people who are baby storyboard artists looking to get into the business, like what kind of stuff would you suggest having in a portfolio? Like what do people look for? Like board revisionist is probably a realistic place to get in. So where do you think they can weasel their way into the industry for boards?
I mean, board revisions, like you said, the tricky thing with boards is a lot of the jobs are freelance positions. So you're working from home, which is there's really no junior version of that, which I mean, I think is unfortunate. On my teams, I've really worked to try and get in-house board teams, which is also difficult because most of the experienced board artists are used to working from home and they've got their own setups and their own like schedules and stuff. So it's kind of like it's boards are in a weird spot like career-wise. So that said, like in revision positions are almost 100% in-house. So the really obvious like the two main ways to get into boards I see is people starting in revisions or honestly starting in layout. Because people drawing backgrounds, like that's one of the hardest parts about getting into boards, especially for me, because I was only ever doing characters. I never did any layout work. I was terrible at it in school. And it's like, I really have to draw backgrounds. And you talk to layout artists, they are just enraged by most board artists because they do not draw backgrounds.
Yeah.
You can really tell when you look at boards which board artists started in layout because there's a lot of background information. So that said, you don't have to be great at drawing layouts. You just need to learn some basic perspective and like, again, like how to give good information to an animator, you learn how to give good information to layout artists. And one is like learn how to draw a grid and a floor plane.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Else, like that's like the only thing you need is draw some grids. But yeah, see, layout is a place where, I mean, it's just solid drawing, and that perspective is like the core to like any kind of boarding, you know, is being able to draw like a room or like structures or trees or whatever. So layout drawing is a really strong way to get into it. And like layout, I feel like is sort of half and half. There's a lot of people who do freelance layout, but there's also a lot of in-studio positions for layout too. So as a baby board artist, learning layout is always going to be super useful. And if it can get you in the door, that's a really good way. And it's like, honestly, it's a really low learning curve to get into layout because it's just drawing, and it's not even drawing characters. So you can start off super simple with layout and then go super extreme. So it's like there's a huge range of doing layout work that you can get started with. So I feel like it's kind of accessible.
Yeah, I feel like the competition in the layout department is a lot less steep.
Yeah, I mean, it depends where you go, but to be honest, like it's always necessary, and it's hard to find good people who can do that stuff. So if like drawing is your thing and you're not really sure about like how to get into doing boards, like layout is a great place to start. If you love doing boards and you just need to get into it and like you're more character based too, then revisions are a good way to go. Revisions is like a really tricky job to hire for because on one hand you need someone who has like is fast and like has really good like communication skills and has a good like sense for interpreting directors' wants, and essentially you need an assistant director or like a senior board artist to do revision work. But revision positions are like always junior positions. So they usually don't like pay well enough for senior people to like to come in and do it. So it's always this, I mean, on one hand, it's a hard position to hire for, but it's a really great position to start in because you usually have way more responsibility than you'd ever get in those jobs. So what to do? I mean, other than just being an already pro board artist, I think the best thing to do is being really good at communicating with people and like solving problems and like fast and adaptable. So even if you're not that experienced, if you can like pick stuff up, if you can jam on ideas, if you can talk about story stuff and like figure things out, I find that like if I'm directing or if I'm ADing for a show and I have a revisionist, I usually don't have a lot of time to explain stuff. And if I have to sit down and do a lot of drawings, then it's almost, I feel like it's faster for me to do the work myself. So the best revisionists I've worked with are people who I can like just explain my feelings about a board, or like this part's not working, or this isn't working, or this should be more exciting, or this should be in closer, or whatever, and have them be able to take it and like try a bunch of stuff. And if like you don't know what you're doing, I need you to be able to try like 5 versions of that and then figure it out without me telling you. So it's like that kind of like quick learning process of being able to work closely with people. If you're like the kind of person who likes to sit quietly and just do a lot of work by yourself, like I think it's going to be really hard. It's going to be really hard to get like a position if you're not already like pretty good at doing some boards.
Right.
I mean, that's my opinion. It's really subjective though. I'm thinking out there different shows. I'm like it really depends on the assistant director or the board supervisor or the director and the team and the studio. So it's like, I think that like fundamental skills, like, you know, drawing fast and communicating and trying stuff and being open to revisions will like get you anywhere in any job. So I guess that's just
just be super good at everything.
But I guess a lot of people I talk to who are trying to get into boards are really nervous about like the quality of their drawings and like how like good their boards are. And they're trying to be like super pro board artists already. And I would say like that is really crippling because like you said, like you have that fear too, where you're like, I don't get like the frame. And I'm like, that's fine. Like the frame is easy. Like you just draw a whole bunch of shitty ones and then you'll figure it out. Like, you know that about all the animation you've done and effects and all of this stuff. Like you just do it bad for a while and then you get good at it. And like,
yeah, that's fair.
Boards don't even have to be good drawings. This is the great part. Like you can just leave it as a rough sketch and that's actually better. Right. So it's like
I think I'm just too uptight. That's my biggest flaw in there.
You know, it's really hard when you spend so much time working at the end of the pipeline where you're working with like final picture, everything has to be like exactly right because it's going to be on TV. And learning how to loosen up and draw stuff that's rough. Like I know that too. Like it took me a long time. I was lucky to work with a couple people early on who just had this really loose, rough gestural style, and it was like I would just spend a lot of time really trying to like draw more like people like that, and it was nice to be around them and see them draw. I really like watching other people draw. If you can see videos, like I like seeing people's strokes, like how many lines they use to get somewhere, and you can almost see someone's like thought process. So yeah, if you know people who draw like the way you want to draw, like watching them do it is a cool thing to do too.
That's a good idea.
Not that everyone can like just do that, but I don't know, maybe on the internet people film themselves drawing. I think that
Oh yeah,
happens.
there's tons of stuff like that.
Yeah, so that's just something I find really neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Instagram's good for that because even they'll just put like a 1 minute time lapse of their drawings. That's really
Yeah.
cool. Have you ever heard of storyboarders taking on apprentices? Like even like a free apprentice where you're like, hey, if you maybe train me, I'll do your flats in your or something, or I'll clean all your drawings for you. Have you ever heard of
I mean,
anything like
sure,
that happening?
I've heard of it. It's it really depends on the artist. Like I know some board artists like to do roughs first, and having somebody clean up the roughs. Like say for example, you're really good like drafts person. You can draw like a good clean line and like nice drawings, but you just don't know anything about boards. Then sure, maybe you'd be able to help someone do cleanup for their boards if that is style they work with. But like for me, I wouldn't hire someone to do that because I've just learned I don't like doing cleanup. I like roughs before doing cleans at all. I just want to do better roughs so that I don't have to clean them up ever.
Right. But it's worth reaching out to people if they want free labor for or in exchange for information.
Honestly, like I feel like it's better just to ask for a favor and just say like, can you just like look at my boards and give me advice? Because the biggest problem I find is it's not hard to get advice from like people who are doing this because it's really hard. The frustration I have is I'll give people advice and they won't do it.
Okay.
Because I've given a lot of people advice on boards, and there's a couple of people that I've like actually spent some time mentoring, like a couple of sessions of like, let's go through some boards, and like I've spent like an hour or two going through this stuff, and then next round it comes back, and it's like it's not really different, or like they didn't do enough work, and it's like when you get that kind of feedback from somebody that you're missing, it's like you do take a revision, like your shot's here, and like you get it like that farther ahead with a revision. It's like that's not going to do it. It's like if your shot is here and you get revisions, I want to see you like take it like 3 times farther with that revision. And if that means you've got to do it a couple of different times, you got to go like make big changes through revisions. I guess part of it is just being really honest about like how far you need to go. If you think that you've got a long way to go and you really need some mentorship, just make sure that comes through in the work that you're doing. Because if somebody with a lot of experience is going to take the time to help you, it's because they believe in you and they want to see you do good work. So like the way you can give back to that person is by showing that you take the advice seriously and just doing just a ton of work with it and like really making big changes, pushing hard, and like just trying to just deliver on your side of it, right? Because that's what I want to see when I give someone feedback. It's not that I want to see you be an amazing boarder. I want to see you just work really hard with that and and see the value. Because I mean, honestly, just doing the work, you will get better if you're paying attention and you're working at it. So I'm going to try to give, like, if I'm mentoring you, I'm going to talk to you about the thing you're looking for. You've already told me about like you want to learn about the frame. So if I was teaching you boards, we would talk a lot about the things that you are like struggling with. I would like maybe give you some suggestions for where to start and like some exercises to do. And then next time we talked, I'd want to see that you did like a ton of it. If I told you to draw thumbnails and like fill a sketchbook, like you probably come back. I know you probably would. You'd come back with like a full sketchbook and like, but that's the kind of trust that, I mean, because I know
I have
you.
a problem.
Know you. Yeah, but I like that about you.
I'm just a workaholic, so.
But like, like
so
say
you
this.
kind of have to be a workaholic if you want to get bust through.
But like, let's say like I'd never met you before, and this is the first time we're talking. You're saying, yeah, I just don't get the frame. I've done lots of like drawing before. I'm pretty good at animating, but like I just don't get framing. And we had that same talk. I'm like, I'd be a little nervous saying, oh, cool, that was fun talking to you, but like I have no idea if this person's really going to go and do all those drawings that I said. If I said do like 100 drawings, I'm like, are you really going to do 100 drawings? Like I'd be nervous about it. And so it would be really validating for me as a mentor to have you come back to the next session that we're talking or hanging out, or I say session like it's formalized, but like next time I see you and we talk about this stuff, like you can bring back, look, I did like 400 drawings.
Yeah,
I did
you pop on their Instagram and it's just masses of it.
I did what you said, and then I tried my own version of it, and then I like also wanted to try just like boarding my own thing. So I got this script and did that for a couple of days, and then I started working this other thing. But now I'm getting really bummed out because I'm like, I don't know if this even makes any sense. And like you've just come with this bulk of work, and like it could all be like super bad, but that amount of work, it's like it's not going to be if you do that, if you work that hard at it. And I see that you're like doing the things that we talked about. So it's like anytime somebody's doing a favor for you, especially like someone who's more experienced than you, like they want to get something out of it. And I think the best way for you to repay that person is just by showing that you're taking the advice, you're working really hard. Because I mean, like I said before, I spend a lot of time like telling people like what I think they should do for boards, and let's not seeing them like do very much with it. And like, I don't know, it's scary because it's hard. Like any of this work is super hard. So when you sit down to do it, it's going to be really daunting. So I guess that's the advice I'd have for mentorship. So yeah, you got to find people, but
I love
you got
it.
to work.
So you linked me storyboarding program. Is that the new free one that's been kicking around?
Yeah, I just heard about that a few days ago. I downloaded it and it's called Storyboarder.
I'll paste it down in the
Yeah, send you the link. You should check it out. It looks super good. I haven't tried it yet.
Okay.
But it looks like...
I was wondering, because I've seen it being passed around. I was wondering if anybody had first-hand knowledge of how well it worked, like especially compared to something like Storyboard Pro or...
Yeah, I downloaded it today and like was meant to play with it. I just didn't have any time. From the website's really good. You can scroll down on the website and there's just tons of like GIFs and like images of it going. It looks like they've got a limited number of tools. Like you've just got a couple of different brushes and you can't do that much stuff with it. Apparently there's no layer support either. So you just got to do one sketch right away, which I think is kind of cool.
Be brave.
But I looked at looking at some of the videos, it looks like there's layers. So I don't know. I heard someone on Facebook saying there's no layers, but I don't know if that's true. And then it looks like there's some cool features where like you can like take like a photo on your phone of like thumbnail drawings and it'll like highlight frames and like put them right into the program like already. And it like can make
sounds really promising
animatic out of it. And it's all free and it's open source as well. So other programmers can go and like add features and change stuff to it as well.
You just happen to have a few of those in your pocket.
No, what I'm saying is that there's going to be new versions of this coming out because other people who think it's pretty good or missing a feature, they can, like, someone might change it. There might be new stuff. So super cool that this thing has come out. So I'm looking forward to trying it. Anybody who wants to get started with boards, I'm like, you should check that out because
it's free. It's free.
It's free, and it's like, if nothing else, it removes a lot of the clutter of like programs like Photoshop or whatever. Because honestly, like I did boards in Photoshop for a while, and it's just a pain in the butt setting up a board template and like setting up your panels and like you put them all together so you can like flip through them and like animate them, but then you've got to like paste them out on boards or you've got to make thumbnail sheets, and just managing those layers, it just takes a really long time. And if you want to put text on stuff, so Storyboard, one of the best things about Storyboard Pro is that it does all that stuff automatically. You can just do a drawing, next drawing, do another drawing, next drawing. It's pretty good. But there's also like a ton of extra features in the Storyboard Pro that like if you're just getting started, like you don't need most of the stuff it does. So I'm really excited about that software. So anybody who wants to get into it should definitely try it because it's super free.
Yeah, free is my favorite.
I'm definitely going to be playing with it because it looks cool.
Yeah, I'll have to get an update from you. And one more thing I wanted to ask you about, because I want to keep you all night, is what have you noticed now that you've moved into games? How does game story differ from television story? It's a lot less linear and stuff. So how has that transition been?
Well, storyboarding is kind of filmmaking. So it doesn't really apply in the same sense, like, because you're not really doing shots unless you're boarding a cinematic for the game, in which case it's exactly the same as television. Right. So what I've found the storyboard skills useful for in games is sort of game design and illustrating concepts and ideas before like anyone needs to program them. So I'm using a lot of the like visual language of doing like a sketchy drawing with like red arrows that point and like a sequence of images to like just basically animate like how something might work. Honestly, like I think it's just you're using a lot of the same parts of your brain and a lot of the same like having Photoshop skills and stuff is pretty useful. I haven't actually used Storyboard Pro for game design, but it might almost be useful as like making like a mock-up of how the game works if you want to see like menus popping open or your character running somewhere or fighting monsters. Like it's kind of more like animating.
Right.
So I would say it's like there's not an obvious corollary, but like the skills are very useful everywhere. I mean, I think storyboarding skill is useful all the time because it's basically you're learning how to just draw things clearly and explain fairly abstract concepts with a couple of sketchy drawings. So it's like if you want to do comics, if you want to do diagrams of things, like it's just
some of my favorite just indie comic artists and illustrators, like it always comes back to their story artist somewhere. I don't know why, but I'll gravitate towards someone's art, and they're almost always a storyboard artist because they just a single drawing has so much story in it because that's their shtick, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of like visual film language you need for doing television and film, but other than that, it is really just storytelling with pictures. And like that skill can scale forever. Like you can just keep getting better at telling funny stories with drawings. You can tell a story with one drawing, or you can do a couple of drawings. Like it's just super good for lots of things. But in terms of like transferable skills, if you're a storyboard artist, like in film, you can't really be a storyboard artist in games.
Right.
Games don't have films in them, or they do, but then you're working on a movie game,
Yeah.
which is a lot of that. So that's cool. I think from people that I've talked to who've done storyboards for games, it's a lot more of a like concept art kind of position, and it's a lot less shot by shot. Like I know people who've done like boards for cinematics for games, but like they had to design the characters and come up with like ideas for lighting and like all kinds of stuff where it's really more like promo work or ad work. So it's, I feel like it's a lot more complicated just because it's this like sort of free form like art thing that you're doing if you're doing movies that way. So
that's neat.
Yeah.
Okay, so final thing, I'll put you on the spot a little bit and ask if there's any movies or shows specifically that you'd recommend, or books, resources, anything you can think of off the top of your head that you'd throw at baby boarders.
My favorite storyboarding book that I've read is called Directing the Story.
Okay.
It's by Francis Glebas.
I'll put that down below.
Yeah, I read a couple different books, and this one, I always go back to it, and it's full of drawings, and it's all like Post-it note drawings that have been scanned in. So there's like Sharpie marker on Post-it notes because this guy did storyboards on like Aladdin and like a bunch of old Disney stuff back when there were no computers, so everything had to be crappy drawings because it was just tons of marker stuff, and he like uses storyboards to teach you how to do storyboards. And there's some just really, really cool fundamental knowledge there. And I like it that it's both really advanced because he talks about some really high-level board stuff, but also like super basic fundamentals that apply like just as much on both sides of it. One phrase that he uses really early on, he uses a comparison that film language is kind of like a literal language where it's got like nouns and verbs and grammar, and he uses comparisons with like shot choices and like the way you draw storyboards as the same way you like structure a sentence basically. And like it won't make sense if you don't have each of the pieces in the right order. If you switch things around, now your sentence isn't logical. In the same way, your story structure is grammatical that way, which is cool. And he refers to the idea of directing attention is the primary goal of doing storyboards. And I just really love that phrase, directing attention, because I think that's sort of more useful than saying like clarity is important. Because you could talk about like directing the camera or directing like the acting of the characters, and those are all true, but at the end of the day, it's the audience's attention. You're saying, look over here, we're going to go this way, and you're deciding what they're going to look at shot by shot, frame by frame, and that's I just find that always really, really helpful to come back to.
That sounds great. Love it.
It's a really cool book.
All right. Mm-hmm. So that's the end of my questions for now. I might come skulking around to you again in the future because you're such a good well of knowledge, and we love you here.
So anybody wanting to like learn more about boards, if there's questions that we didn't answer, I would say like leave some comments in the YouTubes because I can see that and answer, or you can find me on
Twitter. Yeah.
Twitter. I need to do more Twitter stuff, so bother me there and I'll do drawings for you or like look at stuff. That's pretty good.
Yeah, please draw 100 thumbnails and send them Simon. That'd be great.
I would love it. I would love if someone sent me 100 thumbnails they did. That'd be great.
That would be amazing. Whenever someone shows me something they've done off one of my tutorials, it just makes my whole week. It just blows my mind. It's like, ooh, someone's learning.
I'd love to see people draw lots of stuff.
Awesome.
And then also plug my game. So we are doing a Kickstarter. It's live. I promised it before, and it's happening now. We need people.
Yeah, I'm going to put that at the header, too. That's the first thing I'll throw at them is pictures of their awesome game. And the cute little lava monster you just put out today. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, Emma's modeling him now, and he's going to be so cute. I'm going to animate him like a little dog, like curling up and stuff.
Oh, I'm so excited.
picture of Oatmeal. So that's going to be really fun. It's probably next week we're going to do some animations for him.
Sweet. I look forward to it. I will like and share and all these things. And you guys should too. Like, share, subscribe to all of Simon's things. Check out Reptoid Games. I will have it all over the screen and stuff using the technology. And thanks so much for coming out again, Simon. We really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, Tracy. I love your show.
Oh, thank you. I love you too. We're like best friends forever.